Hello everyone and welcome to the latest here. Today we are going to take a deeper dive into the startup innovation ecosystem in healthcare artificial intelligence, or to be more specific, medical artificial intelligence. Obviously there's an explosion in funding and innovation going on, and I'm super excited about that. We are in the middle of all of that, and it's always good to see what's out there and go through some other startups that do exciting stuff and create like a bigger understanding of what's actually happening with artificial intelligence and intelligence in general in medicine. So let's dive right in and see what's happening. So I found an interesting website here that lists a bunch of cool startups, and I want to take the time to look through them, right? And this is like a handful. I want to take a closer look. The first one here was actually founded in 2015, which is very interesting. So this is not a new thing. It's actually like Quanchi in 2015. They just got a Series B, but they repositioned themselves heavily into AI. So let's see what that is. Pieces. Nice website, right? If you click on Pieces, it basically tells you that what they do is supporting clinicians in their decisions with patients and do that pretty effectively. So they have a product called Pieces Predict. That's their main flagship product. So let's click on that and see what happens. And here they do a good job in describing this AI-generated assistance for care teams directly in your patient list. I think I remember these guys. They actually had that without AI first, so they are now on the AI train, which in their case makes kind of sense. And what this is directly in the patient list, the care team can see some predictive power from Pieces. And they describe that here, where they can align the care teams with healthcare AI. For example, they identify discharge barriers, right? So what stands in the way between the patient being discharged? They have AI predicted discharge date. So you are in treatment, you're in a hospital, you want to know, or they want to know, when can you be discharged? What is the likely date here? That's a very complicated thing to do. And they have automated summaries, which is very powerful. We also do similar things in a different context. And here, leverage generative AI. So you can be guaranteed that this was not there a year ago. So they added this because generative AI wasn't ready for that. So now it is. So you see that this company is in heavy transformation towards AI, has been there with this core idea of making that much better, the patient lists, for a long time. So this startup is a very interesting case, a very compelling case, in my opinion, how you introduce AI into clinical care. You want to help identify problems, both discharge barriers and diagnostic problems or treatment problems. You want to have predictions and you want to have activations for the care team so they know what to do. So it's kind of an intelligent thing sitting next to the doctors and nurses and tell them, its opinion of what's going to happen next. The theory is very powerful. The reality is, of course, always a different topic. This is not easy to do. Interesting. So I would say Pieces, I will comment on this a little later, where I think they fall on the continuum, on the patient symptom and healthcare continuum. But let's remember them for now. Very interesting. So we have another one here, Rhino Health. So they raised 11 million. They were founded in 2020, so a little newer. They also try to improve, clinical translation. So what that means, let's take a look. What we see with Rhino Health, right, when you click on their home, it's a little harder to understand what they're doing. Rhino Health platform. It allows developers and researchers across academia, institutions, and industry to analyze data, create AI models, and deploy them, right? So different from Pieces. Pieces talks directly as a customer to hospitals and physicians and, practitioners, and makes their life easier. So that's what I call the application layer of AI. So Pieces is on the application layer as an application for the actual end user or B2B user here, which is the physicians, and makes their life easier. Rhino Health is more on the platform level. So it's one layer below that, and it talks more to people like Pieces or people who want to develop something like Pieces on the application layer. So the Rhino Health platform is a bit more abstracted value proposition. It says, well, we are providing you the tools and the components to build your app, kind of. And so they're providing academia, institutions, and industry a system to analyze data and create AI models that then hopefully do something useful. So it's interesting from a VC point of view that they have to make a bet on, how deep do we go? Do we go into foundational models and help build the next ChatGPT? Do we build vertical foundational models like a ChatGPT for medicine, which is probably not a good idea right now, versus ChatGPT? Do we go on a platform layer, one level up, into someone who helps other people build apps? Or do we jump right into the app layer and build the end applications for AI. I have my own theories here, but, there's space across the board for a lot of people. So Rhino is on this abstracted layer. They basically try to get to people like pharma, like hospital systems who want to build their apps. And you see it's a little harder to understand if you're not into AI. The problem they're formulating is healthcare is being held back by a lack of access to clinically relevant data from a diverse patient population and so on. And the Rhino Health platform allows to, basically get access to these federated learning data sets. But it requires the user to be pretty sophisticated. So if you look at the solutions, you have a biopharma solution, right? Drug discovery and preclinical development. You have healthcare organizations who can do research, collaboration, deployment. So this is also pretty abstract. So Rhino relies on, it's probably very pharma-driven is my instinct here, because healthcare institutions normally are not sophisticated enough to even have teams that can use platforms like that, because they would need the vision, what to do. They would need to have the technical skill sets to use something like Rhino. So that's an interesting thing here. So let's take a look at the next one. Next one is Akasa. So an A16Z invested here, Bond and Costa Nova Ventures, 85 million. And, you can also see here already in the summary, that is, one of these interesting applications of AI, where they help healthcare providers and medical centers to manage their revenue cycle. So that's code for making more money. So one problem in healthcare, I wanted to do this video for you to understand how broad these applications are and how healthcare AI often has not much to do with actual providing medical value, right? So for example, like Akasa, that's a whole big area of AI in healthcare that is being used in I find it depressing way. Doesn't mean Akasa is bad, probably a great team. They probably make a lot of money, but it's depressing because they use the power of AI for one purpose. They tell the healthcare systems and the providers, you have to bill all the stuff you did in a different way, and we tell you how to maximize the reimbursement from Medicare and the insurance. So in a way, super boring. Of course, not if you like money, but it's something, that was very early on one of the main uses of AI to basically deploy AI in this vast and depressing space, billing cycles and revenue cycles. Where you have this infinite complexity of CPT codes and reimbursement, and it's all about tricking and fine-tuning your invoices to the insurance so you get paid the most for what you did. So that's definitely complex enough so AI can make a big difference, but that's not going to help a single patient. And in their defense, they're probably pitching this as a financial thing, so it's not about patients. But I find it always depressing when healthcare comes down to, life cycle revenue management and insurance invoicing. So here, next one is Okin, and Okin is all about pharma. So again, pharma is, I have some videos on pharma too. Pharma obviously is a giant, elephant in the room in healthcare. They have a lot of money and they need to do many things. They have to lobby Congress a lot and control the media. But besides that, they're also doing research to have more drugs. Some of these drugs are probably very helpful and some of them are not, but they're all going to make a lot of money. So let's, put our cynic's head on the next to us for a minute and be positive here about pharma. If pharma wants to find better treatments for patients, companies like Okin can use AI to find better treatments. And I mean, in biopharma, you see when you click on this, they're doing lots of complicated things. But they have drug discovery, for example, disease to target engine. So that just means if you have a disease, you want to understand what drug targets could help defeat that disease. Target discovery is a huge problem. And a ton of data goes into that. And AI is very promising in doing a lot here. Drug to disease engine, I didn't read this up here, so I don't know exactly what they do there, but my instinct would tell me, a big application is if you have approved drugs, FDA-approved drugs, the FDA basically approves the safety of these drugs. And having safety approved by the FDA is very powerful because you can repurpose that drug all over again. So maybe you have a drug that's good for weight loss that also turns out to be good to reverse diabetes or treat diabetes. And so once you have a drug approved, it's this whole game of can we use that drug again for something else because it would be very good. And so all of that is powered by a lot of data, and you need AI, or AI can help you to do this much better. And they also manage data directly through these systems here. They have a bunch of diagnostics, which is interesting. So for example, MS Intuit, let's look at that. So that is a CE marked. So I assume that's the European approval here. So it seems to be something where they help with the AI to optimize microsatellite instability testing, which is a certain, genetic condition in tumors that informs certain treatment pathways. For colorectal cancer, through a pre-screening approach with digital H&E slides. So H&E are pathology slides, and H&E are two substances. I always forget the names, but they're two substances to dye pathology slides to see certain angles on the tissue, including, microsatellite instability indicators. And that's a big challenge for pathologists. So AI can definitely optimize that. And they basically feed these pathology slides. Here you see a pathology slide. They feed that into the AI, and the AI can predict if there's an MSI, like microsatellite instability issue. And if that's the case, I would confirm it through genetic testing. And if that's the case, you have green light for a certain treatment. So before we get lost into too many details here, but you see here, that falls into the image recognition category of AI. Can be also very powerful because you have human mistakes. If humans just look at that, you want to go from pathology slides or images directly into the right diagnosis. And AI can help a lot for that. Then we have the next one, talking about AI, radiobotics, that does similar things with radiology images. And that's a very widespread use of AI because it's image recognition that has been, in the works for a long time. So basically you have an X-ray here and you want to see what's going on with that foot. And the diagnosis can be done much better in most instances by a machine. Now, there's a lot of competition in that, but so they probably, here, this is a fracture identification engine. Things can become very complicated. For example, fractures are a totally different topic from tumors, right? If you want to detect tumors in an MRI, that's very different from detecting fractures in an X-ray because you have to train these models specifically with these labels and these kinds of images. So once you train an engine with fractures, that doesn't detect cancer, obviously. Cancer detection, very important in MRI imaging. So very cool. And you see how specialized they are. So they have one engine that was trained on fractures. Then you have one that was trained on knee for osteoarthritis. So that tells you a little bit, and RB hip, right? Landmarks and measurements of angles related to dysplasia and other hip conditions. So what you see here on the application layer is that, once you have a platform, for example, for image recognition and imaging-driven diagnosis through AI, the application layer very likely will then go into much more specific applications because each of these types of diagnosis needs to be trained and fine-tuned the models. And so you can be strong in RB hip, right, in hip and knee, and another person might be strong in MRI-based cancer detection. And a third person might be very strong in, sclerosis and cardiovascular conditions. So as you can see, there's an endless sea of things you could do in AI here. And that's just one of them. Each of them carry a lot of benefits for the patient to do this right. So these companies definitely help patients a lot. Next one is Overjet. So Overjet does the whole image recognition thing in dental, as I just elaborated on. So this is now a different company that takes X-rays here of the jaw and the teeth and identifies stuff, right? Probably like cavities and things like that. Okay. So what did we learn from these startups? So first of all, there's a ton going on, and we now looked at different verticals and types of startups. So from, helping with diagnoses and helping physicians and providers to deal with patients and predict what's going to happen. Here the pieces thing, right? Very powerful. So they help them to identify discharge barriers, predict discharge date, patient summaries, and guide decisions. To Rhino Health, which is a platform solution that just helps other people develop apps all across the board and biopharma. To Arcasa, that just helps you make money after you did your job as a physician or healthcare system. How can you now squeeze out every dime from the insurance, which unfortunately, by the way, is the big game in healthcare. And then we had here Oken, that is a broader platform. So we looked at here also image recognition and diagnostics, but we saw that they have a lot of things going on here. Drug discovery engine, right? So for pharma, they clearly have different target groups here. Pharma and then also providers. All the way to here, the image recognition radiology for fractures, for hip and knee, all the way to dental. So what do I think about that? Well, I want to give you a little model here that sheds some light on what my bigger thoughts are on AI in healthcare. So let's take a step back and don't be too disturbed by the complexity of this chart. I will explain this in a second, but let's take a step back and think about what we just saw. So we saw interesting AI applications across the board. Here's the big problem that I see in healthcare and medicine at large, and how that problem translates into the AI innovation ecosystem and how it hijacks the amazing power of artificial intelligence and medical intelligence, a term that I introduced here, and what the problem actually is. Here's the problem. When you look at the patient symptom continuum, right? So here are patients with no symptoms, then they go into light or diffuse symptoms, into severe symptoms, into emergency. The gray bars I marked here, it's more like a qualitative model, so it's not exact quantification, but it shows you direction. The gray bar shows you what the capability of the current medical system and the focus is. And it's very clear that the focus of the current system and the capability lies in emergency and in severe symptoms. If you go to a doctor and say, "Doctor, I don't have any problems," the doctor tells you, "That's great, please go home. I can't help you." That's a big problem. I will go there in a second why. But I think you can agree, if you go to an ER or a hospital, they expect you to have severe symptoms. They tell you, okay, what's wrong with you? You can't tell them nothing is wrong with you. Now that shifts the entire focus of the healthcare system into the correlated status of disease, acute sickness or trauma, war, end stage. I always, say war because that's how it comes across to me, that this healthcare system was designed for the front lines of the Civil War, right, in 1861 to 65. So it's about, I have a gunshot wound. We need to amputate the leg. This guy has pneumonia or some other infectious disease. That is what medicine was built for, and that's where medicine is really good. The problem is the following. Of course, because the healthcare capabilities and focus of the healthcare system are all here, the short-term economic incentive of all these innovations in AI are also here, right? They all try to maximize your revenue cycles, or go into a hip fracture or something like that, or drugs that can then address acute sickness and trauma and end-stage cancer or late-stage cancer, late-stage cardiovascular, late-stage diabetes, kidney disease, liver disease. The problem are the incentives that the current system is all about that, and these over 4 trillion we spend every year in the United States all go into that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong, I might get into an accident. Next week I will thank God and whoever invented medicine that we are very good at this kind of stuff. But here's the problem. The real opportunity with AI and the greater topic of what I call medical intelligence is defined, in my opinion, by the number of people you can save, by the amounts of lives and money you can save the healthcare system. And when you look at that number, that's the orange pieces, how many additional lives can you save? It's all about no symptoms. Let me explain why. I just published a video that we can save up to 600,000 American lives per year through early detection and prevention. That's where the real life-saving potential lies. And AI plays a crucial role in that mission. We can save all these lives because when you look at the 4 horsemen that kill us right now, it's the chronic diseases, neurodegenerative diseases, diabetes and metabolic conditions, cardiovascular, and number 1 in the age group under 75 is cancer. All of these have one thing in common. Once you have symptoms, you have a huge problem and your survival rates go down dramatically. You want to intercept all 4 horsemen that actually kill most people today. You want to intercept these horsemen early stage before there are symptoms. And to do that, we need precision prevention. We need more advanced imaging, more advanced genomics. We need more advanced medical intelligence systems and data systems. And we need to connect dots at a much higher resolution than conventional medicine can right now. You actually have to see light or diffuse symptoms very early on. You have to statistically triangulate risks based on indirect data we get from patients, from what they say in their family history and so on, and from the genetic data and imaging. That wasn't possible before generative AI because you need to see much more and know much more at a much higher resolution. I think that is the real exciting potential here for medical intelligence, artificial intelligence. And that's what we are working on very intensely. I think it's completely overlooked and misunderstood right now. the facts are very clear. That's where you can save 600,000 lives per year just in America. That's not contested, it's very clear. But it's a new form of medicine. It's precision preventative medicine. That is where all the value will come from, and that is how we save hundreds of thousands of lives per year and millions of lives over a decade. So that's my take on the whole thing. I'm very bullish on that area, but it requires true innovation and not just cookie cutter startup copying. So we are on this journey. I think that's the future of medical intelligence. AI plays a major role, and you will soon hear a little bit more about that. If you want to know more about it or have any questions or comments, just let me know in the YouTube comments. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. It was a little bit of a different perspective here on artificial intelligence and what's going on in medicine. To see you very soon in one of the other videos. Thanks for listening.
This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of a board-certified physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. You should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition you have or think you have, and you should seek the assistance of a healthcare professional for any such condition. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are my personal views and opinions and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any company I'm involved in.